There we go.
Oh. I'm at my grandparents' house, so I'm just trying to find the place where the Wi-Fi reaches the best.
Aw, that's awesome. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm very excited. I've always been a fan of you guys, so
Well, we're
Wow.
a big fan of you.
Yeah, that means a
thanks.
lot. What state are you in?
California.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
It's lockdown there though, right?
Yeah, it is. There's not really much going on. They just reclosed. They basically went back into shelter in place, so there's no eating indoors or outdoors. Everything is takeout.
Wow. Someone who was built for quarantine or not? Like, I feel like Carly, you're such a homebody, but like,
Yeah.
I'm someone who like, I always want to be like out doing something. Like, do you feel like you're ready for it, or like you like it, enjoy it?
I definitely feel like I am more okay with it than a lot of other people. I feel like I'm introverted, so I enjoy like the company of a few people, but not many. So like I'm okay with not being around a lot of people. But it definitely does get a little bit boring, especially when I was in Chicago, because I was just in a 1-bedroom apartment. It was basically a glorified studio, my apartment in Chicago, and so it's not even like I have a backyard that I can at least be outside in. It was pretty much from my apartment to my car to the field back home, and then just stay in my apartment the rest of the day. So yeah, that was a little bit of stir crazy going on there, but here it's a little bit nicer.
There you
Do
go.
you thrive in like with solo training during these times, or do you much more prefer, the big group training?
I think that I prefer group training. I think for two reasons. One is my favorite part about playing is being with my teammates. I think the part of soccer that's the most fun for me is being able to like be in competition and play small-sided games or just like do fun things with my teammates as opposed to by myself. I also think that as a defender, it's just inherently and factually harder to train as opposed to being an attacker, because everything a defender does is meant to be off of somebody else. Like I have to react to whatever someone throws me. So it's kind of hard to defend a cone or to try and
That's a really good point that I honestly, I'm ashamed that I haven't even thought of that, because like I have an attacking mindset, so it's like, all right, I'm going to go take 1,000 shots on goal,
Yeah, right.
And I don't even really put that into perspective.
No, at the end of one of my trainings, I was like, well, might as well do some shooting practice. And I'm sitting there doing that, and I was like, why am I doing this? I never use this, but it's requires a little bit of creativity to be able to have the patience to do exercises that are by yourself. And also like my parents, neither of them really play soccer, so it's not like be like, oh, hey mom, or like, hey dad, can you come out and pass the ball to me, because it would just make my drill worse.
Yeah, you're better off using a wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you always been a defender?
No. So I mean, at the very, very inception of my career, I started off as a left forward, and I think that was purely because I was left-footed. They were just like, go shoot with your left foot. And then I slowly made my way back the field. I actually was a holding mid for most of my career. I started playing holding mid when I was maybe 12 or 13 maybe, and played that all the way up until college, and played it my freshman year in college. And then I was put at center back. I think it was purely because we needed someone to play center back because one of our starters had graduated. And so we needed to fill the position, and that's where I went, and haven't really seen the light of day since. So
I was going to say, like, what do you prefer? Do you prefer to be a defensive player or offense?
Yeah, I definitely enjoy the defensive part of the game a lot. Like I wouldn't want to be a forward, but I do miss playing as a holding mid, just because I feel like you get to be part of both sides of the ball, and get to be a little bit more involved. I think like I'm very fortunate that the teams that I've played on like to use their center backs as a little bit of a playmaker, because I think otherwise I would get a little bit bored back there. But Yeah, I do miss the six, but I can't say that I would be good at it anymore since I haven't played it in a couple years. I would definitely be a little bit rusty. So
That's great to point out, though, your openness, you know, and your ability to adapt to where you were needed with whatever teams you were playing with. Because I remember growing up, I resisted that as much as absolutely possible. Yeah. Even if I said I was open to it in my head, I was very resisting to it, you know. But I think that's something that's so important. It's so common. Everyone we talk to they're playing a position currently that they didn't start out playing. And I think people think that it's like one position or die, and for their whole career, but just to show that adaptability is a skill set that everyone kind of needs to have if they want to play, you know, elite. So I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I went to the World Cup as a left back, which is not a position that I play at all, and that was definitely a difficult experience. But I mean, as much as you'd want to get good at one position specifically, it's also really important to be able to have the versatility in order to, you know, have the most upside on a sheet. If a coach is looking at a sheet of players and it's like, well, this person can play 3 positions and this person can only play 1, like, well, what are we going to do? It's always good to have a couple notches on your belt in different positions.
Totally. And you're just happy to be on the field no matter what, you know?
Yeah.
Today, like, I mean, I won't play goalkeeper, but I will play other positions.
No.
You should see, I am terrible with throwing things. It's hilarious.
That's true. Did you as a kid, did you ever think that you would be playing in a World Cup?
Definitely not. I would like to say that I had, like, you know, the story of me telling my parents I was going to go to the World Cup someday, but I definitely didn't think that the players that I was watching on TV would one day be me. So it's always weird to think about, because like when you watch those players, you always feel like there's some magic about it and it's so amazing and it's so cool. And then when you get into that position, you're like, I'm just a normal person. Like, I'm just a regular person. I'm on my journey too. I don't know, you know, what I'm doing. Like, I'm just living here day to day and just trying to be the best that I can. But it's so interesting to, like, when I first got onto the national team, to meet players that I've been watching for years and realize that everyone's a normal person and everyone has had their own journey and their own ups and downs and have their own lives. And they're not just an athlete on the field. They're a whole entire multidimensional person. That was something that was so kind of mind-blowing, even though it's of course everyone has a life. It's like when you were little and you thought your teachers like lived at school and then you'd see them at the supermarket.
Exactly. Like you felt like your mom and dad, that was all they were, was the mom and dad. But I agree. I feel like you really do think of professional athletes as having magic, and as a younger player, you don't realize like they still have the struggles and issues that younger people do, whether that's with, you know, injuries, playing time, just everything. But it's a good reminder of that. Like, you all are going on your own journeys, just like everyone else.
Yeah, it's definitely a good way to put things into perspective, because I feel like when you're young, you think that everything that happens is going to be the biggest thing that happens, or is like the start or end of something. But then you realize, if you look at someone who's been on the team for 15 years and their whole journey through the ups and downs of, as you said, starting time, injuries, switching positions, getting cut from rosters, you realize that there's just so much more to be had than what's happening in the next month or what's happening in the next year.
Yeah, it makes it so much more, not that it's easy to achieve, but so much more achievable in the eyes of someone who's like has the dreams to play. When you realize that, like, you take into account that these people have had setbacks throughout their career. I think a lot of people think it's like a straight line from point A to point B, and these girls were recruited when they were 11 years old and then were in the system forever. And it's just not the case for almost everyone that we've talked to. Has been cut from something, been missed the rosters for certain things. Like their journey has been nothing but a straight line. And I think that that's so important to shed light on.
Yeah, it's like it's built in. Like if you're not failing, you're not gonna ever be great. Like you know, like if you're never challenging yourself enough or being told no, like you're just gonna stay the same and not be the best. But that's why you guys, like professional athletes in general, are so impressive, because like you overcome all obstacles to get to where you are. And that also goes with saying like every single person has their own unique journey to being a pro. and being like the best. Like, for example, like you have people who didn't play soccer until high school and then they still made the national team. Like, but then you have people who started when they were younger and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So it's so interesting. And it just leads me to the point, like, can you think of a time when you were dealing with a really hard experience, like an injury, or you got cut from a team and where you overcame it?
Yeah, I mean, I could think of a lot of different ones. I mean, one happened when I was like really little. I played on a club team that had a bunch of amazing players. We had a really great team, and so subsequently our PDP team, like our player development pool for our age group, was largely made up of our team, just because we were the good players in the area. And we had one of the trainings with the PDP coach, and there was going to be some tournament or something that they were making a roster for, and I was literally the only person on my team that did not make the PDP team, which was honestly embarrassing because, you know, all my friends and my teammates are getting to go to this development tournament. I'm not sure what it exactly was, but and then I was sitting there not having my name called. They literally called the name at the end of practice, so it was like the most public thing that you could possibly think of.
So
and
and scarring when you're a kid.
Yeah, and so that was probably when I was maybe 11 or so, and I remember the coach had spoke to my coach and had said that, you know, I wasn't coordinated enough and I wasn't a good enough athlete to play on the team, and it was disheartening just because hearing that sort of feedback and criticism when you're young is hard to take, but thankfully I had a club coach that was really focused on development of a player, on the development and like the long game, and not, you know, being successful in the next 3 months, but being successful over the next 5 years. And so I think that his mindset kind of helped form my mindset, and helped me look at the long game as opposed to the immediate success that a lot of people were having. And so I think that really kind of shaped my journey as a youth player. I, you know, wasn't the most decorated youth player. I played on a very good team, but I wasn't, you know, the best player on the team. And I didn't go to any national team camps. And I, you know, was realistic about the kind of player that I was in the moment. And then but I think I was also very hopeful as to where I could get. And so I think that the balance of knowing where you are and accepting where you are, and having the people around you to help you know where you need to get and know how to get there, I think was the most formative part of my soccer journey. Just being able to realize that, you know, there's 16 stepping stones that you need to get through. It's not just 2, it's a really long journey. And my club coach, I think, was very, very helpful in that journey. So that was something that happened when I was younger. Recently, I think getting injured in college was really hard mentally because I had been used to being able to contribute in a very concrete way, to be able to play on the field, play 90 minutes, play game after game, and you know, do what I need to do on the field for the team. And after getting injured, you kind of have to step back and reevaluate how you can contribute in a less tangible way, whether that be, you know, just being positive or helping players out, giving advice, you know, being good energy on the bench, whatever the team needs. You have to fill that role, and that was hard to learn for me, just because it was something that I hadn't had to do before. So learning that in college, I think, was really helpful, because I think that transfers really well into not starting, and being a player that comes off the bench a lot, which you know, I had to take on that role for the national team and during the World Cup. And I think that something that we spoke about as a team at the World Cup is you don't win these kinds of tournaments with the 11 players or the 14 players that actually play in the game. You win with all 23 players on the roster and the staff, because everyone has to be bought into what the ultimate goal is in order to be able to get there. So, you know, our journey as the substitutes was, training on the off days, being the best scout team that we could be if that was what was asked of us, playing with the formation and playing as the players that we were going to play against would look like, and ultimately just pushing everybody on the team to get better every day, and to stay hungry for the final, I think was something that we had to take as a role and embrace. And I think we did it really well. And I think the leadership of some of the veteran players was really helpful in that embrace of that role. So that was another more recent time that I faced a bit of hardship.
And I feel like when the whole team is on the same page, like you were saying, and everyone's bought into that process of contributing however they can, it's kind of contagious. It makes and can make you feel like you're making that much more of a difference, regardless of the number of minutes that you have playing time.
Yeah, and I think having the veterans that are both non-starters and starters was really helpful, to have the non-starters there during practice, pushing each other, really bringing up the energy, and then also having the veteran starters recognize the non-starters in an appreciative way. Really made you feel like the team was cohesive, and it wasn't like a first team and second team kind of deal. It was just one team, which I think was really helpful, because the tournament is so long, and you really do need every player in order to get through those 4 weeks.
Isn't that so drastically different from our college experience?
I know.
Yeah.
It really makes you like appreciate the team as a whole, and like know that every single person is working hard, no matter if you're a substitute at practice or not. Like your role, I love what you said. You made it like sound like you guys are challenging the starters. Like you guys are making them better. So it's such an amazing perspective. I've never thought of that in any way. And I know a lot of young players are like, they might think that because they sit on the bench, they're not contributing or they don't mean anything to the team. But it's like, actually, no. We're all in this together. We all have to be working hard constantly to reach a certain common goal. So it's just like, it's a great perspective to take.
I feel like also, like, not that you can control who your teammates are, but when you do have those toxic teammates or those coaches who are toxic, it makes such a difference in your career. Like you said, your club coach was a reason why you kept a good mindset, because they did that for you. They kept you, not thinking about the short-term game and goals, but like your long-term, like you said, 5 or 6 years. Do you still talk to them, your coach?
Yeah, I still keep in touch with him. He now is a director at the San Jose Earthquakes on the women's side, on their academy. But yeah, I still keep in touch with him.
That's awesome. Very cool. So tell us about your changing things around. Tell us about your college experience. Like, we know you grew up right nearby. You weren't always sure if you wanted to go there. Like, tell us just about how getting recruited, playing there, everything about that.
Yeah, it was kind of a interesting process for me, because I think for a while, I had always thought that I would, I had soccer as a hobby, as a passion, but it wouldn't be a career for me, because I knew that, only the 1% get to actually make a proper career out of it. And so, I was thinking, I need to go to a school and get a degree and, be able to get a desk job after that and have a career in that way. And so something that I'd always wanted to do since I was little was be an astronaut. And so because of that, I actually looked at a couple military schools, because that's actually a really common route for people that want to go into aeronautics and engineering. So I looked at Navy, I looked at Army, and I was actually like seriously considering going there. And then my club coach, actually, he was like, well, why didn't you look at Stanford? Like, they have great academics and they have a fantastic team. And I was like, you're crazy. Like, I wouldn't ever play on that team. Like, I actually want to be on a team that I would maybe get some minutes. And he insisted. He was like, no, I really think that you should look there. And I was like, fine, but you're crazy. And so I reached out to the coach, sent the email saying, hey, I'm going to be on field 8 at San Diego Surf Cup, like come watch my game, whatever it might be. And he actually reached back out to my coach and expressed an interest, which I was very surprised by. And so my mom and I went to the campus and watched one of their games versus, I believe it was University of Arizona. And we went to his office after the game, and he said, "We want you to take up one of the spots in the class of 2016. And I was like, are you serious? Both of us, both my mom and I, we were so flabbergasted. And so after that, I kind of had to change gears a little bit and look at schools that were comparable to a Stanford in terms of academics and athletics, in order to kind of reevaluate if I wanted to go there, what are the options there were. So, you know, I briefly looked at UCLA, at Notre Dame, and I was considering obviously all the parts of going to college, location, what they have to offer on the academic side, their team, their alumni network, all these things. And of course, all of those schools had you know, off the chart scores in each of those categories. But ultimately, I chose Stanford, I think partly because its location would allow my parents to come see a lot of my games, which I think they really wanted. And also, of course, because I think it's nearly impossible to turn down a school like Stanford. I have always been really dedicated to my academics, and I think that was a large part of my reasoning for going there. And then I also had met some Stanford players along the way. Obviously, first going to their camps when I was little, I went to all of their different athletic camps. And then as I got a bit older, going to some national team camps, youth camps with some recruits and some of the players that were young at Stanford. And I really just enjoyed the type of people that they were recruiting. And I think that's a really big part of it, just because these are the people I'm going to be spending nearly 24/7 with for the next 4 years. And so I ended up committing there my spring of my sophomore year of high school. And, you know, as much as I felt like that was a big milestone to reach, it also was the beginning of the next part of my journey, just because, you know, you get the offer and you get recruited and whatnot, but then you also have to be ready when you actually need to step on the field at Stanford, and you show up for preseason day one and you're like, oh my God, this is the real deal here. You know, you're about to run doggies, you're about to run the beep test. Like you got to show up, and you got to, you know, you need to be ready. So I think that then kickstarted the next 3 years of really committing myself to being the best player that I could in all shapes and forms. And, you know, Stanford doesn't let you forget about the academic side either. So they're constantly checking on that, making sure you're taking enough AP classes, making sure you're getting good grades and good test scores. So of course I had to focus on that too. But yeah, my recruiting process was a little bit bizarre because at first I was definitely not planning on going so close to home, and then I ended up in my backyard.
So when did it click for you in your head that you're like, all right, I am good enough, you know, to play and maybe take this as my professional route, you know, instead of a desk job like you were talking about? Like, when did that click? Because it sounds like from the application point, did you not feel like you could hang with that level of playing, or like that it was too intense, or what made you think that like you couldn't play there?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I just didn't think that I was a good enough player at that point. And obviously, if I entered into Stanford in my sophomore year of high school, I was not going to be a good enough player. But you know, I had 3 more years to develop. But I would say that probably after my freshman year at Stanford, I started to think, you know, this is something that I really could do for a long time, realistically. And I think it was because playing at Stanford, you are just surrounded by some of the top talent. And so being able to get better with those players every day and compete with those players every day kind of made it more realistic for me that perhaps I could compete with these kinds of players for a long time. And so I think that's kind of when the gears really started turning for me. And also I think just being around more, like, I mean, every year you just get around more mature players. And so seeing how, you know, the senior class when I was a freshman graduated, and some of them went into the draft and some of them got drafted and started playing, I think kind of solidified that could be my path as well. So I would say probably around my freshman year.
Were you ever nervous and like doubted yourself when you were playing at Stanford?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, as I said, you know, showing up on the first day of preseason, no matter what year you are, whether you're a freshman or whether you're a senior, like, you definitely do have those jitters a little bit, just because it's not an entirely new group of players, but it's like kind of new, and, you know, you got to step onto the field and you got to prove yourself. You got to earn your position. But I definitely did feel, at the beginning of my career at Stanford, a little bit of self-doubt, just because, as I said, this is one of the best teams in the nation with all these players from all around the country and all around the world. We have international players as well that, you know, are the best in their position, and just such great players. I definitely had a bit of self-doubt going into my freshman year, thinking, you know, am I going to be able to hang with these players? But I think that Stanford does a really great job of creating a culture of humility, to be honest. I think that though we have a lot of really great players, I felt very welcome as a new player. I think it's really easy to shut out freshmen. And that is something that some colleges do see, but I think that, the upperclassmen did a really good job of appreciating, the hard work that players put in, whether they're new or whether they've been there for a couple of years, and really kind of making the team cohesive and welcoming while still having a very challenging and competitive environment. So it felt easy and comfortable and natural to both be friends in the locker room, but also still be held accountable on the field. And to be able to kind of have that separation of like, all right, we're going to yell at each other on the field and we're going to push each other, but then off the field, you know, we can still mess around and we can still be friends and you know, be cool like that.
Totally. It's like a family. It's like sisters. You
Yeah,
know?
what's it feels forgivable.
Yeah.
I think that's so important, though. A lot of upperclassmen do forget that, like, it's not just about playing time. Like, you have to be really awesome to your teammates. It doesn't matter what age they are. I remember, like, we made a funny video with, like, you know, college players yelling at the freshmen to get the balls and like clean up the locker room and do all this stuff. But like, when your team does it as a whole together and makes everyone feel more equal, I just feel like it just helps the whole team around. Like, you're probably such a better player because of how the veterans treated you, you know? And like, did you feel that way going into the national team too? Like, very welcomed and in such a competitive environment?
Yeah, and I think that it's definitely difficult to break into the national team because, you know, you have to play well in order to stay there, but it's very hard to play well if you don't feel like you have the confidence of your teammates. And so there's this little bit of a catch-22, because it's like, well, if you don't play well, then you're not staying, but if you can't play well until you have the confidence, but how are you going to get your confidence of your teammates if you haven't played well yet? So it's like kind of this whole cycle that you kind of have to get through. But I do feel like, for how big of a presence and personality that players have on that team, the environment was incredibly welcoming. And I think that, I kind of came in at a time where not a ton of new players were coming in. And so, it definitely could have been very isolating for me, but I think that a lot of players realize that, you know, everyone's been in that position. Everyone's been the new kid. And it's not really helpful to anybody if the new kid can't present themselves as best as possible because they're nervous. So, yeah, there's definitely a number of players that really went out of their way to make me feel welcome. And I think that then instilled in me the importance of like going out of my way to make somebody else feel welcome, because now we're seeing a lot more new players come in, and in order for them to perform and for us to see what they can contribute to the team, like, we have to bring them in and fold them in and make them feel welcome, because that's really kind of the only way that you get the most out of the players.
It's really doing a disservice to your whole team. You know, if you're keeping an environment that hinders players from playing their best, whether everyone knows how it feels to be new and it sucks. And you kind of like always want them to feel the pressure that you felt when you were in that position kind of thing, but it's not helping. It's literally not helping anyone. It's not even helping yourself if the new people, aren't playing their best. So it's a good point.
Did you feel like there was a Stanford connection with you and Kelly and Kristen? Like, was that like a really surreal feeling to see like the idols that you watched growing up are now your teammates?
Yeah, and especially because there is that age difference. So like I was watching them when I was quite young. And like I don't know if you guys watched my 23 stories, but I literally have Kelly's jersey from Stanford.
I saw that. That's so cool.
And
did you show her?
It's like, no, I didn't show it because I was embarrassed. Of course I was embarrassed. Like,
you should have just worn it one day to the locker room.
Right. Like, how weird is it that I have one of my teammates' jerseys now? But like, if you think
so
about
cool.
it, when she was in college, I was like 10 years old.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like I had her jersey and I watched them play, and they were, players that I looked up to when I was little. So yeah, it was definitely fun meeting them and then getting to play with them. But as I said before, like now you just realize that they're also normal people and they have normal lives as well. So it's a little bit like less intimidating.
That's so cool. That's awesome. What are your hopes for the national team this year? Hopefully the Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, just to play some games, to be honest. Yeah, it definitely sucked like this past year and not being able to play games, let alone go to the Olympics. It was definitely something that I missed a lot. But this year, I would say, starting to bring in those new players, because we do have a lot of players that are thinking about retiring or kind of slowing down a little bit. And so as they make their exit, we have to be able to fill those positions seamlessly. And I think that's something that this team has always done quite well, is not having too much of like a rebuild period where we don't perform well. I think that's a lot of our mentality, is to, no matter who's on the field, to uphold a certain standard. And so I think hopefully this year we'll have a really successful year with the Olympics, and then be able to start bringing in some newer players to help contribute to our team and to kind of start this next generation of the team. Obviously, everything is very up in the air right now with what we have planned, but I would say those are the hopes for this year.
And what about yourself, like personally? What do you have any personal goals for the year?
My personal goals, I would say, are to get into game form as much as possible. I think this year has been very difficult with like all the kind of oscillations that we've had in our schedule of prepping for season. Okay, just kidding, we don't have season. Re-prepping for season, playing. I got injured, and then like re-prepping for a fall series, and kind of going through these ups and downs and different cycles. So hopefully for me, getting like 90-minute ready and feeling really good about where I am where I'm at as a player, and then ultimately making the Olympic roster. Obviously, it's a very small roster, and we have a lot of really great players in the pool, so that's going to be competitive. But a goal of mine is to make that. So hopefully that comes to fruition.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, it's definitely such a weird time to be an athlete, but like you were saying, like just work on the things that you want to work on and control what you can control. And that's like the best advice we can give any younger player too right now, who, they may or may not have a season. But I think that's really great. And I know it's tough for you as a defender, but you're probably doing all the work that you're supposed to be at the best level right now.
Yeah, do my best.
Yeah.
We'll drive out to California and we'll stand on the field for you.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll probably be at the level of your mom and dad. I don't know if you want to see this.
You might be parents.
Sure, and I'm sure you guys would definitely be a little bit higher than they are.
I don't know. What advice do you have for younger lady ballers, whether it's playing in college at a high level or trying out for the national team? Is there like one piece of advice you can give them, or you would give your younger self?
I would say one of the biggest things that I've seen is really important for players is their ability to be coached. And I think that sometimes, obviously, it depends on the kind of coach that you have, how information is delivered to you, and that can cause you to react in different ways. But your ability to take information, whether it's positive, whether it's negative, and internalize that, work on it, and perform on the field, or maybe not on the field. Maybe it's a something that you need to be doing in the locker room or with your teammates. But whatever it is, being able to take something that's given to you and make use of it, I think is one of the most valuable assets that you can have as an athlete, because really a lot of what coaches are looking for is just that ability to be adaptable and to improve in different ways, and take information and be able to not take it personally and not take it as a kind of personal jab at you, but really just take it as the coach wants you to get better, and they want you to be the best that you can, and to take that and make yourself a better player. And one of the main ways that I've been able to do that is watching film. And I know that it's like super cringy to watch film of yourself. I hate watching film of myself because as soon as it comes on, you see the one clip and you're like, oh, I know exactly what's going to happen. Like, I'm going to pass it right to the wrong person. And you're like, oh my God, I know this is exactly what I'm going to do. And it's so embarrassing. But like, it's also the best way to see yourself and say, oh my God, this is exactly what happened. I remember how on the field that it happened. And now I've taken this picture and I've internalized it, and now I know what to do. I think that's one of the fastest ways to learn, especially during COVID times. Like, you can't necessarily be on the field with your team, or you're practicing by yourself. Being able to watch film of yourself, being able to watch games or highlights of games. I think if you look at my like YouTube like recommended for you page, it's literally just random compilation highlights of different people of different teams, just because it is for me really helpful to actually watch compilation highlights of like a defender making tackles or making passes, because sometimes they'll do things that you have never thought of, and so you'll be like, oh, I can try that, and then you go to practice and you try it and it works or it doesn't work, and you can modify it for how your team works or how you function. But I think that being able to be adaptable and versatile is the most important thing as a player.
I love that. That's great advice.
Yeah, I haven't heard of anyone say like look up the compilation videos. I think that's genius. Yeah. We'll have to look some up and share some with people, but that's a great point. And also it's great that like all the networks are replaying like major games too if they can't actually play, so that's the one thing we all can do. Like if you're on the couch, you can watch soccer.
Is there one player that sticks out to you that you really like watching videos of?
I really like watching Virgil van Dijk. I think he's a really good center back. But also when I was younger, I loved watching Puyol. And I think like the passion that he plays with in games is so contagious. And so it's fun to like watch his highlights because he's literally tossing his body in front of the ball and doing crazy things like that. But I think Virgil, I feel like, is more me as a player. I feel like he's pretty calm and composed, and I'd like to imitate some parts of his game. Unfortunately, I will have to continue watching highlights because he's injured, but yeah, those are two players that I enjoy watching.
Very cool. All our center backs at home are going to write that down and watch it now.
Yeah.
Guys, should we end with some rapid fire?
Yeah.
Do it.
It's not that rapid. It's medium.
We always
medium-based fire.
All right, I'm ready.
What's your favorite cleats?
Tiempos. Nike Tiempos.
Those are my favorite too. I love them.
That's a classic center back.
Mm-hmm.
Pre-game meal. What's your favorite pre-game meal?
Oh, I would say, honestly, I would say some sort of like chicken teriyaki rice bowl, not like super heavy on the chicken teriyaki, but like some chicken, some rice, throw in a bit of a couple of vegetables, just real light, real easy.
That's a great one.
Lucky number.
When I was younger, it was 6, so I guess 6.
Yeah, like would you change your jersey number right now if you could?
So the jersey number thing with the national team is really complicated. So no, I would not. I'm just happy that I have a jersey number that no one else like is gonna come and take. But like my first cap, they gave me 17 because Tobin was injured, and I don't know why they did that, but I got reamed for it on social media, and I'm like,
I feel like I remember that.
I'm like, guys, I swear, I didn't choose it. I didn't want this. I didn't ask for it.
That's literally mean of them to do to you.
That's crazy.
Yeah, no, and sometimes they'll do that. Like if a player is injured and a new player comes in, like they'll like, you know, someone has worn like 13 before, which is Alex's number, but then like fans go crazy, and you're like, no, like the player didn't ask for that number. Like,
yeah,
we promise we're not trying to steal it.
That's
but yeah, no, my number at club right now is 26, and that was actually my number when I was younger, so that's why I have that. But yeah, 6 was my number when I was like really, really young.
This is what we mean by not rapid fire. Is
yeah, it's a conversation.
All right, sweatpants or leggings?
Sweatpants.
Hells yeah.
Favorite movie?
Dark Knight.
Ooh.
Current favorite song or artist?
I really like Forrest. He's one of the artists of the duo that's Surfaces, and they're kind of getting big right now, but Forrest actually makes his own music as well, so he's one of my favorite artists. I couldn't choose one of his songs though. Maybe that's really hard. I'd have to come back to you on that. I have to like literally go through my Spotify.
Who's your favorite teammate on the national team to travel with?
To travel with? I'd have to say Morgan Bryan, because we were roommates a lot in France, and we sit next to each other on the bus, so I'd definitely have to say Morgan.
Nice. What about favorite teammate to go out to eat with?
Ooh, I feel like Andy Sullivan and I would go out to eat a lot together, because I feel like we have similar tastes in food, and we also can appreciate desserts.
We
both like desserts. So
who doesn't appreciate desserts?
Sometimes it's like is it appropriate to get a dessert if you're at national team camp, like on your off day? Like, are you allowed to? But we both kind of vibe with each other, and we're like, okay, yeah, like we can do it.
What's the favorite? Like ice cream, donuts?
I'm definitely a classic ice cream person. I really enjoy, that's passed down from my dad. He likes ice cream as well. His dad liked ice cream, so
there you go. Nice.
Who eats the similar style as you.
Yeah.
Right, and is able to enjoy the finer things in life sometimes.
I feel like that's how me and Carly became friends. It was our love of food.
Most likely.
And what about favorite teammate to play with? It could be training, it could be practice, it could be game, whatever you think.
I really enjoy playing with Crystal. I think that she's super energetic and really positive on the field, and she also like always gives her all. And again, she plays in a position that was not her first position, and isn't her first position in club, but I think she's a really great player to play with, and she's also really hard to play against, and so I always feel like I'm getting better if I'm playing against her.
I love that. I think that's it, right, guys?
Yeah. It's been really, really awesome speaking with you. I mean, I think you said a lot of things that a lot of lady ballers and a lot of the people in the audience can actually take a lot of notes on. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me, guys. This was fantastic.
It's so great to hear I would have never known all these things about you, and I it's like you were saying, we're like humanizing you guys. I know you say that the watching the players on TV is magic, but now you are that player to an athlete now, so it's so cool just to get to hear your journey and like how real you guys are, and your setbacks. Like I know failures are not fun, but it's like literally makes you feel normal, like you were saying. Like these are normal people, so sharing your story and being so open about it is really awesome. I feel like so many people will appreciate that.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, and I love answering questions that always aren't, you know, the same questions over and over again, because again, as you said, I do feel like it humanizes us a little bit.